Imagine a time when there was no country called Nigeria. The land we now know as Nigeria was made up of powerful kingdoms, empires, and communities. In the north stood the great Hausa city-states and the Sokoto Caliphate, known for their trade, scholarship, and organized government. In the west, the Oyo Empire and the Kingdom of Benin flourished with rich culture and sophisticated administration. In the east, the Igbo communities had their own system of governance, while communities across the Niger Delta thrived through fishing and trade. For centuries, these societies governed themselves. They traded with one another, fought wars, made alliances, and developed their own political systems. Then, in the 19th century, something changed. Britain's Industrial Revolution had transformed its economy. Factories needed raw materials such as palm oil, rubber, and other resources. At the same time, Britain wanted new markets where it could sell its manufactured goods. West Africa, rich in resources and strategically located, became increasingly important. At first, British influence came through merchants and trading companies rather than soldiers. British traders established commercial relationships among the coast, especially in areas rich in palm oil, which had become essential for British industries. But trade soon turned into political influence. One company, the Royal Niger Company, played a crucial role, led by British businessman George Goldie. The company signed hundreds of treaties with local rulers. Many of these rulers believed they were merely allowing trade or forming alliances. However, the agreements were often interpreted by Britain as transferring political authority and exclusive commercial rights. The company gradually gained enormous power. It collected taxes, controlled trade routes, maintained armed forces, and administered territories. In many ways, a private company had begun governing vast regions of what would later become Nigeria. As British influence expanded, resistance emerged. In 1897, British forces launched an expedition against the Kingdom of Benin after rising tensions over trade and political control. Benin City was captured and many of its priceless artworks, now known as the Benin Bronzes, were taken away. The event marked one of the most dramatic examples of British military expansion in the region. Elsewhere, British forces continued to extend their influence through treaties, diplomacy, and military campaigns. Communities that resisted often faced significant pressure. By the beginning of the 20th century, Britain had established control over large parts of the region. However, administering numerous territories separately was expensive and difficult. Then came one of the most important decisions in Nigerian history. In 1914, British colonial administrator Lord Frederick Lugard merged the northern and southern protectorates into a single colony. The new entity was named Nigeria, a name derived from the River Niger. For Britain, the amalgamation was practical. The southern protectorate generated more revenue, while the northern protectorate required financial support. Combining them created a more manageable administrative structure. Yet, the people living within this new colony had not been consulted Hundreds of ethnic groups, languages, cultures, and political systems were brought together under one colonial administration. The consequences of this decision would shape the future of the nation for next generations. British rule introduced new roads, railways, ports, and administrative institutions. Western education expanded in some areas, and modern government structures began to emerge. However, colonial policies were designed primarily to serve British economic and administrative interests. Resources flowed outward. Political decisions were centralized under colonial authority, and many local institutions were transformed or weakened. By the mid 20th century, demands for self government were growing stronger. Nigerian nationalists, traditional leaders, intellectuals, workers, and students increasingly called for independence. Finally, on October 1st, 1960, Nigeria gained independence from Britain. But the story did not end there. The borders drawn by colonial administrators, the political systems they established, and the economic structures they created continued to influence Nigeria's development long after independence. The untold story of Britain's takeover of Nigeria is not simply a story of conquest. It is the story of trade becoming power, treaties becoming control, and many diverse societies being combined into one nation whose history is still unfolding today.